Hi guys, and welcome to my August favorites. I will admit I have gotten so used to filming so many overhead videos of late that I kind of forgot how to set up my camera, and I'm gonna have to remember to stare at the camera as opposed to like off into the distance. But I am excited to be filming today's video. I just started this series on my channel, which seems kind of silly because I feel like favorites videos are like the standard makeup YouTube video, but I always felt like I didn't want to be pushing a whole bunch of new products. I didn't want my favorites to be about things I just tried this last month, and so I just hadn't really figured out a way in which to do favorites in a way that felt authentic to me. And then I started to realize that it's a combination of both maybe some products that I've tried and or old favorites of mine, as well as techniques that I've really been loving. And it's also a good opportunity for me to share other things in my life besides makeup with you guys for those of you that are interested. So I do intend to share some channel recommendations, some food favorites, some book favorites, things like that towards the end. I understand not everybody's interested in that, but I like the idea of getting to know you guys also in the comment section on a different level than just makeup, and sometimes talking about other things in our lives that we really, really love is a way to do that. Like I mentioned in last month's video, this is not a step away from regular makeup content on my channel. I'm really probably only going to be talking about non-makeup-y type things in this monthly favorites video. So let's go ahead and get right into all of my beauty favorites. Makeup favorite number one has a lot to do with what was going on with my skin in the month of August. Towards the end of July, beginning of August, I was having a lot of allergies, like really bad allergies. I can usually keep my allergies under control with, I take over-the-counter Zysol. It's like XYZAL. Used to be my prescription, and now it's an over-the-counter, which is awesome. In general, that does a really great job of keeping my like seasonal allergies at bay. I'm pretty much allergic to the great outdoors. If nature makes it, I'm probably allergic to it. And so usually that's plenty and I have no issues. But for some reason, latter part of July, beginning part of August, I was dead, like I was dying. There was probably a solid week where I was really glad that I had pre-filmed a whole bunch of content, like the lipstick declutters, etc., because I couldn't have sat down and filmed if I tried. Like I couldn't put on makeup, I couldn't put on contacts, like I was just miserable, and I was actually having to take small doses of Benadryl throughout the day just to keep myself from having a full-blown allergy attack so I could even work still. So all that to say, Benadryl has this really bad habit when I have to take a lot of it for a long period of time of really drying me out, and then having allergy attacks also has a tendency to leave you like slightly dehydrated, and I felt like no matter how much water I was drinking, everything was getting really dehydrated. My skin was getting dehydrated, etc. And so what I found is, coming off the end of that whole allergy nonsense, was that my skin was really parched, and in particular, like my chin was just super dry. It was like it was shedding a whole layer of skin, and kind of my forehead as well. I have normal type skin, so I don't deal typically with a lot of dry skin problems. I mean, I have cell turnover that's slower than it definitely was in my 20s, but in general, I don't feel like I have dry skin. Usually if I do my skincare routine, I can keep my skin very normal. The one product that I have to say I was relying on a lot at the beginning of the month to just kind of revitalize my skin, but not like strip it and make it even drier, is this mask from Farmacy. And I think I talked about this in my Best of Beauty 2018, and it'll probably be in my 2019 review as well. But this is the Farmacy Honey Potion. This has propolis, which is an antiseptic that's found in beehives. It's also amino acid rich royal jelly, it says, and it's got honey in it as well. And I want to say that there was something called, yes, there it is, phytochemical cichoric acid, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is an AHA. So it's an AHA that is going to help remove dead layers of skin, but in the process, this is very moisturizing and also antiseptic because my skin was very irritated on top of that. So I really love this mask. It's warming. And as you blend it into your skin, it kind of almost foams up and goes from this jelly consistency to a white foam on your skin. It stays warming. It just feels nice on your skin. And what I find is that when I rinse it off, it's not only exfoliated sort of the dead skin cells that are on the top layers of my skin, but it's also left my skin feeling very, very moisturized. I really appreciate what this product does, and I really do think it's unique on the market. I know it's a kind of a pricey product. I use this several times a month, and I still have probably a half a jar left at least, and I've had this for over a year. So a little bit goes a very long way, and I really appreciate that also, because I want to feel like if I'm spending the money on a mask, A, that it works, and B, that it's not just gonna be gone in like a month. It does come with this little spatula, which is magnetic and sticks to the lid, which I think is really great, so you're not having to dip your fingers into the jar. Keeps it a little bit more sanitary, but I just found this to be a lifesaver. And I've also now used it towards the end of the month of August as well. I was traveling to very hot, dry places, Vegas and Phoenix, and my skin was also getting really dry just from being in that environment. And so kind of a similar thing, to a lesser degree, but similar thing was happening as I got home. What I found was that the skin on my chin and on my forehead in particular was really dry and kind of needed to like shed some dead skin cells as well as get sort of super hydrated. So was relying on this mask as well for probably the last week in August. So this is just a lifesaver product. It's a staple in my collection, but I really appreciated just how wonderful it was in the month of August. I did a ranking my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes video. I will link that down below if you guys are interested in watching it. But it is funny, as I got into that video and I was swatching and filming and talking about it, I just found myself gravitating to my top 2 palettes this month. So number 2 for me was the Persona palette, and number 1 was the Tartelette palette. I'm giving some things away if you haven't seen that video. There's 8 other palettes we'll talk about, but I found myself reaching for these. I hadn't shot my stash for them this last month, but after I filmed that video, I kind of just left them sitting on my counter. And then I also traveled for a good chunk of this month, and every time I traveled, these were the 2 palettes I took and played with. They work really well together. They give me great looks. They have great longevity. For many of the days that I was traveling, it was for work events, and like I've mentioned before, oftentimes that means I'm putting makeup on at 6 a.m. and I need it to not look like ratchet at 10 p.m. that night when I'm getting back to my room, because I will have very little time to touch up throughout the day. It really is go from breakfast all the way through to a dinner meeting. So having palettes that I trust, having palettes that perform, having palettes that give me really beautiful eye looks, but ones that I also still feel like are professional. Like, I want to look polished. I don't want to look like I'm wearing a lot of makeup. And you know, here's the thing. I love makeup. I'm doing crazy things with my eyes today, and I love how this turned out. This is me on the weekends. This is me going out. And this is me just having makeup playtime in my own house when I'm feeling the mood and when filming. In general, for work events though, I want people to be focused less on my makeup and more on what I'm saying. I don't want my makeup to be the thing that they're paying attention to. I want them to be paying attention to what I'm trying to communicate and the things that I'm trying to say or the proposal that I'm trying to make. So I try and do professional yet still makeup that is enjoyable to me, and that's one of the things that I really love about these 2 palettes in particular. You know, I knew I loved them. I clearly ranked them, and I had no issue ranking them 1 and 2, but it's funny then giving yourself probably like 2 solid weeks out of the month in August to really like hone in on your 2 favorite palettes. It really did just reestablish in my brain how fantastic these 2 palettes are. I was using 2 other eyeshadow products very consistently this month, and those are 2 ColourPop Super Shock shadows. One is the shade Koosh. Now, I know Koosh is not currently on their website. It's a shade that I think was original to their line. It's one of their ultra metallic shadows, so no glitter in it, just super shiny formula. And Koosh is one of those shades that they continue to like discontinue and bring back. So I feel like there's almost always 1 or 2 times a year where you can repurchase Koosh. I actually repurchased Koosh a couple months ago when it was back on their website for a little while. And it's this beautiful silvery taupe that really makes my eyes look really bright and awake. And I find that because it's a taupe that is slightly silver, but still has a little bit of neutrality to it, like it's not super, super cool toned. What I find is this shade in particular, I can wear with warmer looks very easily. So I can put down a very warm transition shade. And so I was reaching for sort of this as a transition shade. And then I was even going even a little bit warmer and reaching for the more rusty red shade in the corner here. And Koosh still works all over my eyes. It really brightens. But what I appreciate about these Super Shock shadows is how much they lock into place. So there were some days where I wanted to do a little bit of light makeup, but I knew I was going to be out in the hot heat all day long. And I was reaching for these Super Shock shadows, and they just last. it was at the end of a day and they'd still be right there on my eyes just the way that I put them on, which is quite impressive. Another shade that I had taken with me on that trip and I've continued to use afterwards is actually part of the Disney Designer Collection. I did check, and this one is still out on the ColourPop website. This one is looking a little banged up because I traveled and I think it kind of rattled it loose a little, but this is the shade So This Is Love. This is also an ultra metallic, but it's a little more rosy toned than Koosh. And so when you see them side by side, they both have that same intensity. They're both at the same depth. They both look fantastic all over the lid. This one just leans a little more rosy, and I had fun playing with some purpley shades with this, as well as just kind of running it all over my lid and calling it a day. So my love of cream face products did not diminish at all in the month of August. I talked about that being sort of a favorite technique, favorite style of product in the month of July. It has really carried through into August. If anything, it's just kind of deepened in my love for sort of cream and liquid face products. One, I just found them to be so very natural on my skin. So on days when I didn't even want to wear makeup, I could reach for some of these cream products and they just blended into my skin. A couple that I wanted to mention that are not new to my collection, but ones that I loved and used a lot this month. One is the Flower Beauty Blush Balm. I have the shade Pinched. And Pinched is their more neutral shade. They also have a light pink that I'm contemplating potentially picking up. I actually prefer both the packaging and formula of these flower ones to the Glossier cloud paints. And I know that might be sacrilege to a lot of people who love those cloud paints. I also love the cloud paints, but there's a couple things that I love about the flower ones more. One is this applicator. It's a much more fine-tipped applicator, and so it allows me to squeeze out just a teeny tiny amount of product and it doesn't get all over the place. The Glossier ones, in contrast, just have a normal sort of squeeze tube with one of those flat topped applicators, and so it's very easy to squirt out probably 2 to 3 times what you're needing. So I feel like I'm wasting a lot of product with those Glossier products. And then in addition, I just find that these, I don't know, I find these a little easier to blend out. Don't get me wrong, the Glossier ones aren't difficult. They're by no means like a bad product, but I find like this is just so easy and effortless, and I like this color more than the two that I have from Glossier. I have Dusk and, the pinky tone shade, and I almost want to mix them together every time I have them in order to create something that's more along the lines of this shade. So both for the shade as well as its formula and applicator, I just love this. The other thing that I found myself reaching for a ton this month was actually in my Shop My Stash drawer. This is from Flesh Beauty. This is one of their highlighter sticks in the shade Startle. They have a couple of other shades in this, but this formula is just glossy. It's not like you're wearing a highlighter. It's not like you're like, oh gosh, that's a beautiful sharp highlighter on your face. It really is that your skin just looks dewy and fresh, and I find this to set down. So a lot of times those like balms that give you that wet look on your cheek that are really, really beautiful end up with a little bit of tackiness, and I'm still okay with that tackiness. I've kind of grown to like the look so much and be okay rather with the fact that like I can touch my skin and it doesn't feel like powdery. It feels a little bit moisturized or slightly tacky. I have learned to be okay with that because I think the appearance on my skin is lovely, but I also know that a lot of people might like that sort of dewy wet look, but don't feel like they want to deal with that tackiness as a result. And for you, I would say give this a whirl. I think this is a very universally flattering shade. Even though it is clear, it doesn't come off as white. It really just comes off as glossy. But I do feel like they've got some, I think they have a gold and a bronze shade if you've got sort of medium or deep skin tones that you could definitely try as well. So I absolutely love this. The other face product that I found myself reaching for a lot this month was actually my Glossier Stretch Concealer. So this is a very dewy concealer. It is incredibly shiny. In fact, you can even kind of see that shine inside of the jar. I have the shade Light Clear 10. I do feel like they have added more shades, and this is now the third lightest shade. There's 2 lighter than this, and I can't quite tell if the Light Clear that I have from before matches up with shade 10 as they have it listed now. What I like about this is it has a lot of natural oils in it, And so it just blends into your skin. And how I was using this was less when on days when I was actually wearing foundation and more on days where I was really wanting very little makeup, but I just wanted to kind of touch up my face a little bit. I found that this is a concealer that really blends in underneath your eyes, does a little spot concealing, can be tapped all over your chin in light ways, and it can give a very natural coverage. It honestly starts to look like you haven't put anything on your face. And part of that is definitely the natural oils that they've included in here. It has, I'm just looking at their website, both avocado and jojoba oil, as well as cocoa butter. So there's a lot of things in here that are going to add a lot of moisture, a lot of hydration, and then really blend into your skin well. And so because I was in a very dry, arid environment where the temperatures were really hot, days we were going hiking, days we were outside a lot, and I just didn't feel like I wanted a lot on my skin, all I was reaching for was this. I was putting a little bit of this underneath my eyes, a little bit of this to kind of cover up some spots and some redness around my nose and around on my chin. I wasn't even setting it with powder. And then I was reaching for this a little bit on my cheeks and this a little bit as a highlighter. And what I got was just a very natural, no makeup look where my skin just looked really fresh. And so I really like this concealer for days when I don't want to wear much else on my face, or I'm going to put on a tinted moisturizer. That's the other way I found that I really like reaching for this concealer. I don't find this concealer to kind of be the best with other sorts of foundation, a lot of other foundations, unless they're very lightweight and glowy on their own. Because this is so emollient, because this is so hydrating, it can kind of mess with matter foundations or even some more like natural finish foundations. So it has its place in my collection, but this month in particular was one where I just was dipping my fingers in there all month long. The last two makeup products that I wanted to mention were lipsticks, and these were ones that I picked up, I think, at the end of July, if I recall. So these are the Becca Ultimate Lipstick Love lipsticks. These were buy one, get one free, I think, for National Lipstick Day last month. I have loved these, and I think a lot of it, once again, has to do with wanting a lipstick that has a little bit of hydration, recognizing that if I put on a matte lipstick as I was traveling for work in these very hot places, that my lips were just going to like shrivel and die in no time flat. I was looking for a little bit of hydration, but I wasn't wanting to wear necessarily a gloss every single day. This is a very naturally glowy lipstick. I have two shades. One is Mocha, which is more of a sort of, they called this one a neutral nude, so not too warm, not too cool toned. Then the other shade that I had is Sorbet, which is a cool toned, more pinky shade. And I found that these two shades were just perfect for just about every look I was wanting to do, especially for work trips, because it was keeping my lips moisturized. It was giving me either a warm or a neutral lip, depending on the outfit I was wearing and what I was doing on my eyes. And I also found that they faded very gracefully. They didn't bleed or feather. They didn't wear away in a strange fashion. They just kind of gently disappeared off of my lips, leaving a little tiny bit of a stain, and that was perfect. So these, I want to say, have some sort of oil in them because I think they are so, there we go. So they describe these as an 8-hour longwear silky satin lip infused with hyaluronic acid to smooth the appearance of lips, and light reflecting oils to deliver high impact, luxurious color in a single swipe. So they've got avocado and olive oil along with hyaluronic acid. So I definitely feel like this is a wonderful, beautiful, comfortable lip formula that just does really nice things for your lips. And I'm really looking forward to having these in sort of my lipstick arsenal come fall and winter when it starts to get a little colder and a little more dry in my environment here, because I feel like these are going to be ones that just are great when my lips are feeling a little bit chapped. I think the packaging is absolutely beautiful as well, which is always a nice plus. So those are my beauty favorites. I want to call out now a channel that I've really been loving in the beauty space because I want to give some shout outs to fellow creators out here on this space. But the channel I wanted to call out for you guys specifically is The Honest Beauty Review. It's all kind of one word. If you're searching for it, I will include a link for her down below. Her name's Lauren Marie. She just has this very easy, approachable manner about her. She does very in-depth reviews on both skincare and makeup, recaps, gives really good descriptions about the products she's using, why she likes them, why she doesn't. I just find her to be very down to earth, very approachable, and very authentic in everything she says. She is a mom, she's a nurse, she has both a career and a family she's managing. And so I just find her to be very, I don't know, easy to listen to and very down to earth. Definitely encourage you to check out Lauren's channel. I think you'll really enjoy it. So I also wanted to recommend a channel in the non-beauty space. It's funny, I mentioned loving sci-fi and fantasy books in my video last month in terms of just my reading preferences. And I had so many comments from you guys on the book that I had mentioned, as well as just recommending series and have you tried this and have you tried this? And I was like, oh, I know I love my audience. They love makeup and nerdy things. You guys are awesome. So I wanted to recommend a channel that I absolutely love. It's Daniel Greene. He's a little bit younger, but he does some of the best he's got kind of a news show a la Jen Loves Reviews, but for sci-fi and fantasy. And so I love that because it keeps me up to date with all kinds of stuff. He does fantastic book reviews and ranking different books. I've really, really enjoyed watching him for probably, I would say, 5 or 6 months at this point. He's also been kind of talking inside of the larger fantasy space about some of the upcoming shows that are coming to Amazon and Netflix, because with the success of Game of Thrones, what you're seeing is the likes of Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and others throwing big money at sci-fi and fantasy novels in a way that we've never seen before. And so I've been super interested in just keeping up with some of my favorite books coming to life on the small screen. So if that is interesting to you, I highly encourage you to check him out. Once a week, little new show is really funny. He's really funny, and I just really enjoy him. In terms of actual physical books that I've read this month, I will admit to being kind of behind. I have been throwing all my time and attention actually at Audible books, to the point that I've actually been going to sleep with a sleep timer on my Audible in order to hear the next chapter, which I have to admit is a very satisfying way to go to sleep. But I've been listening to an Audible book series of a book that I've already read. In fact, the series of 4 books that I've already read, because the 5th book is coming out. It's a series by an author named Melissa McPhail. The series itself is a pattern of shadow and light. I definitely feel like I'm getting some Wheel of Time influences in through her works, and I'm totally here for that. I love that book series, and it's actually one of the TV shows I'm most excited seeing come to the small screen. But this book series is beautiful on its own. It's very well written. The characters are incredibly lush. The story just kind of sucks you in right away. She's really good at world building. And one of the things that I am very appreciative of is I believe she is publishing most of these books herself. I think she went out on a limb and did this because the publisher for her books is 5 Strands Publishing. And the 5 strands are kind of the 5 strands of magic in this book series. So based on who her publisher is and the fact that 5 Strands Publishing has only done this collection of books, I believe she is self-publishing her books, which I am always here to support. She got an amazing Audible actor to do her books in Nick Podell. He is fantastic, probably one of the best at accents that I have ever heard, and I listen to a lot of Audible books. So it's just a really enjoyable way to listen to this book series that I've already read all the way once through. And when I have a series that I really like, what I end up doing for the most part is rereading all of the books in anticipation of the next book being released, so I can kind of have all the content fresh in my head. I knew the 5th book was coming out, so I've been going back through and listening through all of the Audible books, and I just think it is beautiful. So I would encourage you guys, if you love fantasy, if you loved The Wheel of Time, even if you haven't loved fantasy or the Wheel of Time series, give this one a whirl. I think the characters are fantastic. I really appreciate that she wrote a grittier fantasy series that still has a lot of elements and world building and sort of high fantasy elements that I personally really, really love. So definitely recommend Melissa McPhail and The Pattern of Shadow and Light. In terms of other favorite things this month, I definitely would say some of the trips were fantastic. I mentioned going to Vegas. We go to Vegas every year for a pet expo. So it's where a lot of pet retailers come to meet with pet brands. So if you're selling a toy or a food or supplement or you name it for any sort of pet. You go there to kind of present your products and meet with different retailers. And we go every year just to kind of see what's going on, meet with different people that we know. And so we were there in Vegas for a couple of days. That was a lot of fun. But at the end of that trip, my husband and I actually kind of added on a little trip to the Grand Canyon and then down into Sedona and then down into Phoenix. I have never seen the Grand Canyon, which is kind of a travesty. I kind of feel like I've seen a huge part of this country and the Grand Canyon has just always missed me somehow. That's not fair to say. Grand Canyon didn't miss me. I missed going to the Grand Canyon when opportunity presented itself in the past. So we made a point to go down to the Grand Canyon and it was breathtaking. For as many photos as I've seen, there is nothing that can brace you for how immense this area is and how wide that canyon is. I mean, it's one of those things where my heart sped up and I was just like, the first time I saw it, it took my breath away. And it honestly accelerated my heart rate just to look at the immensity of this canyon and just how awe-inspiring it absolutely was. So walking that canyon and being out there, I absolutely loved. And it's funny. So I've spent a lot of time in Phoenix and Scottsdale because that is where I have some family that lives, but I haven't explored much of Arizona outside of that Phoenix area. And so to come in on the north side of Arizona and see the Grand Canyon and then drive down into Flagstaff and then down into Sedona, the drive was absolutely incredible and the change in landscape is just insane. It blew my mind. And so we spent some time in Sedona, did a little bit of hiking, got a chance to kind of be out of the city of Sedona and out into some of the trails. And it was breathtaking. It was a great way to decompress after a very busy week, and just kind of see some things in this country that I hadn't really had a chance to do before. That kind of leads me into my somewhat silly last favorite, and that was some food that we ate in Scottsdale in particular. So there's a place called Carson's Bar and Grill, I think is what they call it. It's down in old downtown Scottsdale, which if you're in the Phoenix area or you're planning a trip to Phoenix, it's a fun area to build. It has a very Western town feel, but not in a cliche sort of cheesy tourist kind of way, but in a very authentic, this is just kind of the town and this is what it's been like for a long time and you just think it's really cool because it seems so different to you sort of way. And so we like going down there while we're there, and in particular going to Carson's because it's a hole in the wall little bar. They have the nicest people on the planet who run that place. And then for as much as you would walk by and think dive bar, all they have is crap beer. Like, it has some of the best food that I've had in Phoenix. If you go out on their Yelp, they have almost a perfect Yelp score, which is kind of impossible, I feel like, in the restaurant business. Food is fantastic. They have a very highly trained chef who kind of runs that kitchen and comes up with the menu. So it's just like this little hole in the wall that has fantastic food and the nicest people in the world that work there. So definitely would recommend, if you are going into Phoenix, or even if you live in Phoenix area, check out Carson's next time you're in the area. Their salt and pepper wings, probably the best chicken wings on the planet. They are fantastic. But the other thing that I absolutely have to have when we're out in Phoenix is a prickly pear margarita, because the prickly pear cactus is growing in such abundance in that area. They definitely have figured out great drinks and food to make with this bright fuchsia pink berry that kind of grows off the top of the prickly pear shrub. You can't call a cactus a shrub. We're just going to say grows off the top of the cactus. That's probably more accurate. But adding some of that prickly pear syrup inside of a margarita turns it this bright fuchsia pink and just adds the best flavor you have ever had. So I come back from that very frantic work trip feeling nice and relaxed, very energized for everything I've got to get done for work, and also excited for this month for my channel. Got a lot of fun content planned, but those were my August favorites. I hope you guys had an amazing month in August. Would love to know what some of your favorite things were for the month of August, be it life or makeup, etc. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. Talk to you soon.